So in this video, we're going to be talking about fine-tuning the draft now that you have it in complete draft form. It's structurally fine, but in terms of the way it reads and the way it flows, it's still a bit choppy and needs to be refined. So you're starting your second draft where you're going to expand your ideas and refine your sentences. And one of the best ways to do this is through a read aloud. You can read the piece aloud to yourself, you can read it aloud to somebody else, you can have someone else read it aloud to you, which is really good because you then really hear it in somebody else's voice and you might hear mistakes that you would just gloss over if you're reading it to yourself. You're listening for things like short, choppy sentences or repetitious words or ideas. You want to combine short sentences, delete or reword repetitious ideas or words, and also expand where you feel like you haven't said enough. So a couple of examples. So a not so good example would be that Percy made Nancy Bobofit fall in the fountain. He made her fall in the fountain because he was immature and didn't know about his power. Notice that fall in the fountain gets repeated, and it doesn't really need to, and you can actually combine those two sentences to make something that flows a little bit better. So better would be, Percy caused Nancy Bobofit's fall into the fountain because he was immature and didn't yet know about his power. So that you don't have to worry about keeping your 3 points now in 3 separate sentences. You need to worry about how to make them flow together. Sometimes they might need to be combined, and I'll show you that in a second. Another example, the fight with Ares was the climax of the story. Percy used the ocean to defeat Ares. Percy was in his full power. So those are 3 points, like the 3 points of analysis. They're a bit choppy though when they're all broken up like that, so you can actually combine them. The fight with Ares was the climax of the story. Percy was in his full power and was able to use his special weapon, the ocean, to defeat the god of war. See how we didn't say Ares twice? So if I take these ideas and this idea about reading it aloud to myself and come over to my actual draft, and here is my second paragraph in my rough draft, the first draft that I've done. The theme of community versus isolation truly shows how Percy changes. At first, Percy feels alone and isolated. On page 127, he says, just when I'd started to feel accepted, to feel I had a home in cabin 11, I was on my own again. Notice I'm reading this aloud to myself. He may be feeling isolated, but clearly this is a very immature Percy. Now, I've said isolated twice here, so I may want to change that. And I could say something like, he may be feeling like an outcast, but clearly this is a very immature Percy. The tone suggests that he's actually whining. This shows that he has not changed because a true hero wouldn't whine. Now, I'm repeating myself there, and those are 2 choppy sentences. I know that they are 2 different points of analysis that I took out of my outline, but now that I'm starting to make things flow together, I could possibly combine those 2 sentences. So I might say something like, the tone suggests that he is actually whining, and I'm just going to get rid of all of this and put a comma in here. The tone suggests that he's actually whining, not something that a true hero would ever do. This is the result of his life experience up to this point. Now, the word this is a little vague because I'm not quite sure what this is referring to. So I might say something like his tendency to expect to be always on the outside looking in is the result of his life experience up to this point, and I'm going to expand on that. Constantly moving from school to school and never really feeling like he belongs. He doesn't understand, and I'm going to expand here, that he's not really alone. But I need to say more about that, because why isn't he really alone here finally? He doesn't understand that the world of Camp Half-Blood is where he truly belongs, and that he's not really alone. So that's sort of an example of the kind of expanding that I can do, combining sentences, developing ideas that I didn't feel that I said enough and really explained myself clearly, and all of that shows up in a read aloud. So, and it's much easier when somebody else reads it to you. You can have a parent read it to you, you can have somebody else in class read it to you, read it aloud yourself. Reading aloud is very different from reading it to yourself in your head. You will find that you catch mistakes, that there are certain things that just clunk and they don't sound right to you. But you'll want to really start thinking about adding and elaborating. And I would say that a really good elaboration would take a draft, a first draft, and add somewhere between three-quarters of a page to a really good elaborated draft. So you know that you've done enough elaborating when you've added somewhere between three-quarters of a page and a page to your original first draft. Okay, so that's all about read alouds and fine-tuning your sentences for better flow.